This is Karen with NewClevelandRadio.net, and it is time for Care Notes. And Care Notes is brought to you by Cherished Companions and Doug Wilbur. And today's subject is the aging crisis that is coming our way.
Right. We have an aging crisis that a lot of people don't know is actually coming down the pike, and it's much more significant than people realize. There was when the baby boom hit, it has had a profound impact ever since. The first baby was born in 1946. Kicking off the new year and after the war, and that was a defining moment because that generation is a very large generation,
right.
and so that generation is now getting old, and so as it has had an impact on culture and on other things, it's now going to have an impact on the aging population and how things are done, with aging in our country. If you look at the statistics right now, if you look at the number of people that are turning 65, in 2020, we'll just project out a year, it's going to be about 56 million people turning 65
wow.
or at that, who are over 65. I apologize, who are over 65, and we know by 2050 that number is going to be 84 million. So it's not twice as much, but it is a huge increase. But I will tell you the number that is very scary, and that is that the number of people who are over 85, in 2020, it's going to be about 7 million people are over that age. And by 2050, it'll be 19 million that are that age. So
wow.
the increase is phenomenal.
Absolutely.
And we've never seen anything like this in world history. And because of that, we have to devise new strategies, new thoughts, new ways of approaching things. And because that over 85 population is the one, at least I can say from experience, that are having the most difficult times with doing activities of daily living, being able to live independently without some sort of help. And, after 65, the amount of help that people need is significant, but after 85, it is very, very significant. And so for that reason, we have to change our paradigm of how we're doing things. One of the things that I find extremely exciting about what I do is that, in my view, what I'm involved in is kind of like computers 30 years ago. And that is, we were kind of experiencing something new.
Right.
And when all these folks came in and said, how are we going to approach this thing, called computing, and kind of revolutionize things, but they really built that from nothing,
right.
in many respects. The way and the designs and other things that were done really came out of a creative mind and the thought of what is possible. And with home care, that's one of the reasons that I am so excited about being in this field, is because it really is a new field. I mean, 50 years ago, home care was non-existent. There was no idea of what we do.
Oh, absolutely. I remember when we had it for my grandfather when he lived with us. In the beginning, he needed somebody to help him get to the bathroom and somebody to help him get dressed. And that's what that person was there for. And then they would leave, and my grandfather would sit in our living room most of the day.
Right.
And one of us kids, would make lunch for him. And, it's not the same as it really is today. I know a lot of your caregivers do those things, but they're also socializing. They're also impacting their lives in such a way that not everybody feels like they're isolated anymore when they get the proper home care.
Right, and even in the past, the truth is that people did not feel isolated because they were with their family.
Sure.
Now, the level of care that was involved that is involved today is much different. We do a lot of things in a home setting that would have in the past been possibly done in the old folks' home,
right.
in the nursing homes, the traditional nursing homes. But even the nursing homes have transformed significantly from when we were kids. I remember going into nursing homes, and they were actually felt like very scary places.
Yes, you did.
Yes. Younger people now, if you've been into a nursing home, you have no idea. Kind of the feeling, it felt very institutional and also was very institutional.
Right.
And, there was the waft of unpleasant smells in the air that are very different than now. You can walk into a nursing home and smell urine at times, but it was overpowering.
Exactly.
Yes. During that day. One of the things that we see is that this shifting demographics is also shifting culture from one that it was dominated by youth, again, largely put into play by the baby boomers,
sure.
And now it's going to be that is characterized by being old. So the whole population is skewing old because of the way the population is coming
right.
out. And so it's also going to be older people possibly doing care as well. And because of that shifting demographics, one of the other things that's happening is that there aren't enough caregivers. So currently, caregivers are done in such a way, or caregiving is done in such a way that you have a group of people that are taking that on and doing that care, and the issue obviously is that as you have fewer and fewer people, because more people are moving into that
right.
older group, or people aren't as physically able to do it, you have this crisis that's going to happen because you have people, basically triple the number of people that need care in that really old population, right. And yet we're not tripling the number of people that are
into it as a profession.
Exactly,
right.
and so that's a problem.
And some of the things that I've noticed with some of the caregivers I've talked to is that they didn't know when they got into it that sometimes it was going to be a strenuous occupation. They thought they were going to be there maybe making a meal for somebody, helping button a shirt, helping them get out of a chair. But then when they realized that maybe that was in the beginning, but the longer they've stayed with that client, things have changed. And now just helping them get out of the chair sometimes means learning how to help lift them out of the chair. And so I think what I have seen here at Cherish Companions is that your caregivers are learning that there is an evolution that they're going to go through.
Right. Oh, yeah. And one of the other thoughts that sometimes people aren't considering is how just the way our population shifts are. Those things are also having a large impact. I think the average, and I'll have to double check on this statistic, but I think the average family member is 270 miles away from their other family member.
Right.
So our population has shifted. So a parent and child are very likely, on average, to be 270 miles apart.
Right.
So you have people that are in large groups, and those groups, of people that are of similar age. It's not like they're all aging, and so they're not able to help each other. The families who are younger, who used to do that scenario that you said, aren't able to do that, because they're not in the area, and we have fewer people that are able to do the care, and so there's another issue that's also occurring, and that is that people are getting lonelier and don't have social structures to be able to give the support that they need. So 43% of seniors actually feel lonely regularly, and that actually has a big impact on folks. The 59% are more likely to decline in ability to perform the activities of daily living because of that loneliness. And there's a 45% higher incidence or likelihood of dying when people are in this social isolation than if they have a good structure. So again, we have problems,
exactly.
with this. That the number of people that actually aren't able to stay engaged has increased significantly. So 21% of people self-report or report that they're not able to do things because they don't have a way to get to their church or synagogue or other things,
Even
activities.
To the grocery store.
Oh, yeah, exactly. Regular activities.
Right.
The doctor. I see this frequently where someone hasn't been to the doctor or the dentist because they don't have the ability to get there. So this, actually presents with us with a dilemma. What do we do? You can build lots of facilities, and you're still going to have issues around that. You can do home care, and you're going to eliminate a good percentage of things, but we still have issues around caregivers and stuff like that with getting the right people. So it's not going to be a single thing that's going to make the difference. It's going to be multiple pronged approach or multi-pronged approach that actually is going to make that difference. So it's a lot of times people immediately say, well, what's the government going to do? And you and I were talking before, and I made the comment that the government does not have enough money to fund this. It's not there.
Right.
Okay, we're over $20 trillion, in debt, and so you have the costs that are going to hit the system. This has implications, this aging population, on healthcare costs in a really, really significant way. The healthcare costs are going to go through the roof.
Oh, right.
Medicare expenditures is going to go beyond, because these are the populations that are using the majority of the funding that's going in, and so you're going to have this issue because that the amount of money that's required is very, very high. I mean, it's billions and billions and billions of dollars because of the chronic illnesses. When I go in and I talk to people, it's not one issue that they're dealing with. It's many issues that they're dealing with. If I look at their medicines, I'll see that someone is, it's the term polypharmacy. They have so many drugs that they're taking, which is actually a wonder. I mean, the part of the reason that we're having so many people live to be above 85 is because of the drugs, right? You know, they are truly miracle drugs that are keeping people alive a long time. Well, you keep people alive for a long time, and you're going to have other things showing up. So you may save them from having the heart attack because they're on Lipitor, but then they're going to get dementia because they've lived long, and now they're starting to develop dementia that if they had passed away, and not that I'm suggesting that is a solution, but if they had passed away, we wouldn't see that.
Exactly.
You know, they would have died before this was going on. And I'm also beginning to see something really, really different, which is that the war generation was actually a pretty healthy generation in some respects. They had the advent of new drugs. They were not overweight as a rule. Not, you know, they were in better shape than really the generations that are following.
Right.
You know, if you look at the baby boomers, there's you know, a lot of heavy people, you know, and people that don't do things that are physically going to benefit them. And what's even scarier is their children and their grandchildren are even in worse shape. So even that has implications because the cost on the health system is going to be, they're going to be drawing on it. The next generation's drawing on it, and the generation after it. So, you know, what used to be unheard of, which was type 2 diabetes in like teenagers, is now becoming
more prevalent.
Yeah, very common, you know, and so that's going to also put a burden on the system.
You know, you brought up the fact that, you know, there's this big percentage of families that, you know, are living 200 miles or more away from each other.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the things that I remember hearing quite a bit when my mother was living in Detroit and I had a brother in California, one in New York, and myself here, people always said, well, why don't you bring your mother to live with you? And my comment was, because she still had all of her friends, her history was in Detroit.
Mm-hmm.
And we did talk about it. My brother in California, New York, and myself, we all said, oh, Mom can come and live either with us or in the community with us. And then we realized we were going to be taking her away at the age of, I think it was 90, 91, and make her come to a strange city and make new friends. And to us, it was more important that she live where she was used to, and we got her the care that she needed. And yes, did she have lonely days? She did, but she had activities all around her. It was her choice when to be lonely and when not to be, and she did make those choices. So for anybody who's listening to this, you know, you sometimes have to put a headset on and not listen to everybody else's comments, because I know when I turn 90 years old, I surely don't want my boys, you know, moving me to a strange city and want me to start all over again.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you know, 9 out of 10 people, and I've used this statistic in other settings or other podcasts, but 9 out of 10 people say they want to age in their own home.
Right.
Now, some people would define aging in their own home as kind of in their own space or whatever it might be to move in that situation. But, you know, a large percentage of those people, what they're really saying is, you know, I built this house, my kids grew up here, I want to stay here, and, you know, I want to leave on a gurney.
Right, exactly.
I don't want to leave and go into a facility. You know, this is my home. These are my memories. This is where my life was built. You know, and so I really want to stay here.
Right.
And and I see that all the time where the older person will push back on their kids and say, no, I want to stay. Because I'll see that where someone will say, Mom, why don't you come and live with me? And she, Mom is saying, no, I am staying right here, and you can, as stubborn as Mom was when she was, you were a little kid and looking up to her and she would dig in. Well, Mom is doing the same thing when she's 90. So, but, let's say you are lucky enough that you have a situation where you're next door to your mom, or you're, down the street, or even you pull in your parent, or you move in with a parent. Right. That's not curing things. It again is, kind of mixed up with this whole crisis, because of those people that are doing it. The statistics show that 19% actually are suffering physical strain because of helping someone,
right.
and a whopping 70% are suffering some sort of depression. Now, that may be a wife taking care of her husband or vice versa, or it might be a daughter that is now taking on this responsibility. Right. They finally got their kids out of the house, maybe, and when they got their children out of the house, now they're taking care of a parent. Right. In those times that they thought, this is, I'm hitting my 50s or 60s. This is when I wanted my time, yeah. Right? And my time is now no longer there. Right. And so, depression would be a natural response because your dreams end up, kind of going away. So, there is a large group of people right now. It's 34 million Americans are taking care of older adults. They have that responsibility one way or another. They're taking a primary role in doing that, and the average, and this is a lot of statistics, but the average individual in the home is spending over 24 hours a week taking care of someone else. That's a lot of time.
It is a lot of time. Taking
care of another person. It is like when your children are young, and
most of those people probably are also still working, outside of the home. So on top of having a job, now you're coming home and taking care of a parent who, in our mind, they should be taking care of us. And so that role reversal, is a depressing factor as well.
Yeah, the statistics there actually say that 60% of those, group whatever, are of caregivers are actually working. So they're working, they're spending, 24, 25 hours a week, average on taking care, and so something's got to give, and what tends to give in this situation is, things like travel or being able to go out and other things. I have seen where older adults who are single, now they're taking care of a parent. Right. And so they're not able to get out there and mix. Yeah, exactly.
That help them stay healthy.
Exactly. And so they have that loneliness. But it then starts to impact their work. So there is a significant impact in the workplace. So this is affecting two things. It's affecting that individual and their ability to make money, because the vast majority of them, similar statistics, 61%, actually have to make accommodations in the way they work, going in late, missing time,
Right.
taking vacation, taking leave of absences, other things. So it's impacting their work. That has a secondary effect, which is it's impacting the economy, because that is affecting, the productivity of that individual. And again, this whole thing is a kind of a vicious.
It absolutely is.
Yeah.
5 years before my mother passed away, she had her first major stroke, and I left work obviously in the middle of the day and went running to Michigan, and I spent 2 weeks in Michigan, and I used my vacation time up for that because I didn't know how often I was going to have to go back, and in the beginning I actually felt resentful because it was like, well, now I have no time for me.
Right.
And yet at the same time, I wanted to be there for my mother. I was
Right.
glad I did all that. But when I came back to work, I had people who even said to me, "You're angry. What are you angry about?" And then I would get angry for them telling me that I was angry.
That's right.
So I totally understand, that form of depression, because we don't realize it is, but we take on traits that other people see.
Right. Yeah. Well, and that anger, kind of anger and stress, goes internal.
Right.
And so one of the things that they have found is those working family caregivers have a 25% increase in their likelihood to be diagnosed with high blood pressure. So that kind of internalizing of this anger has physical effects, and about half are experiencing significant daily pain. So what that really indicates, just big picture, is, again, it's not something that doesn't have consequences as you do it, because the issue in all of this is that you really do want to take care of your family member.
Yes,
There's that desire and that need, within all of us, to make sure that the person that we really love, our mom or our dad or a spouse, that they are well cared for.
Right.
I mean, that is good, and it's noble, and it's right, and but that doesn't mean that we don't have human responses.
Exactly.
That also goes in a different direction of, why me? Why am I the one?
Well, and I think in some ways, I think it's healthy if you can express it, because in the beginning, obviously, I could not express it. Instead I kept saying, why me? And everybody would point the fingers, because that's who you are. And it was like, no. But once I realized it, I felt so much better about it.
Right.
And I think it's one of the things I think we're going to be seeing as time goes on is that we're going to need as much help as our parents because of what we've experienced. And I think sometimes that might make it more difficult for our children when they have to take care of us.
Right, yeah. Well, I find that when we we offer free guides and stuff on our website. So if anyone wants, please feel free to go to cherishedagency.com. Download. We have lots of material. It's great. It's free, with that. But one of our most popular downloads, and matter of fact, I would say it is the most popular by a long shot, is how to afford home care, or how, and what, the dilemma is people know that there's this need,
Right.
And they're trying to say, how do we put this all together? How do we figure this out? And one of the things that I try to emphasize in the materials that we have is that you have to look at things in a little bit different way. You need to look at it as far as value versus cost, straight cost. And that's not a cop-out. It's just, there's certain costs that are built into the system, and you have to pay it, but you can kind of figure out what value is this,
Sure.
and then how will that impact things because of the value proposition. So you may spend money on home care. We'll just use that as an example, and maybe because you're doing a couple times a week, you're going to get bills, and they're not going to be tiny bills,
Right.
But if that keeps you sane, if that keeps you from being upset and resentful, if that keeps you from developing hypertension yourself, if that allows you to remain injury-free, then there is a significant value. If that prevents you from having to put that person into a nursing home where you're really spending money, and you will, if someone wants to see money go quickly, they need to look at what the annual cost of a nursing home is, and you will be absolutely shocked. A private room in a nursing home, the annual cost is around $91,000 a year. So
$91,000 a year.
right, so it is a lot of money.
So now, when you're paying that $91,000, you have this room. Okay, you're getting meals, but
You're
Because
getting
it-
nursing care, that is in there.
Okay.
You're getting aides that are in there, and there are other things that are a part of the equation. But at $91,000,
it's a lot of money.
it's a lot of money, and the ratios of caregiver to client is I don't know the exact, but it's somewhere probably between 10 to 1, 10 patients for every one caregiver, or up to 15 or 16 for every one caregiver. Some of the shifts, it has kind of different ratios. If someone calls off, you're going to have different
Right.
ratios. But the statistics aren't great as far as that care ratio. So it's not like, it's, Ritz-Carlton service,
Right. And, to me, if your parent needs around-the-clock care, as long as they don't need 100% medical care, I would prefer having, like we did, having my mother at home, because I found ways of, I would take a nap during the day so I could be up with her at night, because I knew that was, her most fun time to be up, and I didn't want to miss that with her. But I also knew that the caregivers at night were fatigued, because in our case, we were finding that many of those caregivers had already done a shift somewhere else during the day. Now they were with my mother at night. But having her at home, even though she was blind, she could tell where she was. She could, the sense of her house. Every once in a while she'd say, "Could you go make me a cup of tea?" And her bedroom wasn't too far from the kitchen, so she could hear me in there. And those were the things that made her the happiest.
Right.
Whereas in a facility, if she had asked for a cup of tea, somebody would have to go down to the kitchen and make it, leave her alone in a room.
Right.
Okay? I was just a few steps away.
And I am a huge advocate. The reason I moved to the home care end of things is, one, it was such an incredible new field, and that I felt like my thoughts and ideas it could impact this for generations to come. I feel like because we're innovating and we're creating this thing, it's an exciting time, and it's one of those things like when Steve Jobs, had looked at things and said, well, why don't we create a phone that's also a computer that you can swipe and do all sorts of things, and created the iPhone that revolutionized how we live, and the jury's out whether it's ultimately going to be considered good or bad. but the truth is that he created something that wasn't there, and so there was some really exciting parts of that. And in the same way, that's the impact, I believe, of creating things in home care, and then creating things in care in general, because of the impact that we have the opportunity of looking at. So one I know we've said a lot of statistics today,
Right.
And to some degree, if you heard all the statistics, you could get a little depressed because...
Yeah, you could.
Right, because it's like, oh, you told me this problem and this problem and this problem. And I'm not about the problems. I am about being honest about the problem, saying this is what's coming. We have to be aware of it, but let's think of what the solutions are. And that's where I was saying before that I believe the solutions, first of all, there is no cookie cutter. I think home care is appropriate for a lot of people. I don't think it's appropriate for every person. But for those that it is appropriate. It is absolutely the best thing. I think that under the circumstances of what people's needs are, and you can transform someone's life by doing this. But I also feel like that you have to look at the big picture. You have to look at the family, family dynamics, where people are at, and then say, okay, what is going to be right under these circumstances? Right. And then be creative in the solutions. So, for example, when you look and you have someone and they are suffering from, say, early dementia, at the earliest stages, let's say they're by themselves or with a spouse, you might not need that much help. But if you get the right amount of help, you may be able to kind of stave off other issues and other problems. So this is where home care is good. And this is where the value proposition comes in. You have to say, okay, if I had 2 or 3 days that I got a break, and I'm taking care of my spouse that has the dementia, I can in those 2 or 3 days get that break, get that relief that I need.
Right.
So then, what ends up happening is that you're able to exist for a long time with that, and stretch your money, stretch the ability, and allow it so that the caregiver is having a good life, the client is having a good life, that the person that we're taking care of in our case, and all things are good. Sometimes you don't need a professional service. Maybe you have family members that are willing to step in.
Right.
I do warn people that if family steps in, then they need to treat it like it's a job. They have to say, I am committed, and if they can't say that I am committed to do Saturday, for 4 hours, or whatever that time is that they've committed to, then realize that you probably should delegate it to a professional service, because what will happen is people will kind of say, well, I'll take this, and then 1 week stretches into
Right.
every other week, and all of a sudden people aren't getting the help that was needed. The other thing is it may be something like the thing that the person's doing is they're mixing up their medicines. Well, there are services out there that do medicine, like prepackaged medicine. They don't charge extra for doing it. It's funny. I remember talking to someone that actually was involved in this company that does this, and there are a number of pharmacies that do it. And they said, it's actually cheaper for us to do that than in the orange, yellow bottles or whatever that they
really?
Yeah, to do the prepackaging. And once they bought the machinery or whatever, and that's what I was told, and I thought, oh, that's fascinating. But regardless, there are systems in place so that someone is taking their medicine regularly and not having the issues that can happen. Because if someone takes the medicine wrong, that's one of the primary obstacles. So what people have to do is they have to deconstruct. They have to say, where are the real problems? Where are the issues that we're having with mom or with dad or, with my spouse? And then say, okay, if I got help here or if I had this service, am I likely to minimize the impact of that? But you have to see where the holes are, where the leaks are in the system,
And we have to remember that not every family is going to be exactly the same. So when your neighbor says, well, this is what we do, listen to it, evaluate it, but know that may not necessarily be the right answer for yourself.
Correct, yeah. And because you may not really be dealing also with the same problem under those circumstances. So yeah, you have to have a really honest evaluation, and you have to also be honest on things like whether someone is good at doing care.
Right.
And but if you start doing that, you can say, okay, I can have help in this area with home care. I can have I can look and I can get the medicine reminders, or Philips makes this medicine machine, or that actually will set off a timer and release pills, at a certain time of day, so that the person knows, oh, it's my time to take my medicine. So that can be, a tool that's used, or a caregiver can do that. They can do the medicine reminders, but, part of it is looking and saying, okay, what do we need and how do we do it? Nutrition is one of the things that oftentimes becomes a problem with an older person. They don't feel like cooking. They forget to eat, whatever it is. But, if someone's losing weight, then you have to say, okay, how do we head this off before it becomes a big problem, Or people aren't bathing, which happens a lot for the older people as they're older, and especially as they're getting into their 80s or 90s. It happens frequently. Well, someone who's older, because they're not sweating and other things, they may be able to go and only shower once or twice a week, and it's actually fine. They're not smelling. It's not,
exactly.
But what if they're not even doing it the once or twice a week? Or what if their skin is not doing well and they need to bathe, or have someone help them?
Being washed, they're wearing the same outfit day after day.
Exactly, yeah. And I walked into someone's home the other day, and the person was older, had dementia, and you could see that he had food on his shirt, but I had the feeling that shirt had been worn not once, but probably many, many days, and he just wasn't aware that, that he had, stuff, right, exactly,
Well, you have provided us with a lot of information today. And again, they can go to the website and download some of this information as well. But I think what I got out of it today is that what you're saying is we need to recognize what the situation is, and we all have to start working together on creating a plan for today and for the future.
Right. Yeah. I mean, I guess one of my ultimate goals in having this conversation today was, number one, to recognize that we have a big problem coming. But, a big problem is kind of a societal thing, but that translates into real people, and it translates into real families. And I assume if someone's listening to this, most of the people are one of those real families. And what that shows is that there is going to be challenges. And what the thought that I really had is knowing that we are individually having a problem, that these problems have consequences in all of our lives, as family members or as a spouse or as the individual themselves, and that ultimately what we have to do is look at the big problem, deconstruct it, say where do we need that help, and then start supplementing those things and looking for the tools, solutions, and means of taking care of it. There's a whole area we can talk about at a different time, but it is technology. One of the things I can tell you is there are tools for almost everything.
Oh,
there are things that you can get that makes things a lot easier in home setting, and all it requires, in the end, is a little bit of research and talking to people and knowing that there probably is a solution to whatever you're dealing with, and then trying to figure it out. But it is by taking a big picture approach, looking at the items that are a part of that, and then looking for solutions. And we, at Cherished Companions, believe we're a part of that solution.
You absolutely are.
Yeah, and that one of the things that I encourage folks is, hopefully you can get this from the broadcast, but that, we try to come in and not say, this is what you need to do, but say, hey, what are the problems? What is it that you're dealing with? Let's think about how we need to approach that. And so just, if people hear this, know that we can come out. Generally, it's going to be me, and help you kind of think through how your personal senior crisis, is, can actually be helped, so that we can make life good. And that's ultimately what we want, is not just to survive, but for people to have a situation where they're thriving, both as the individual receiving care and those that are responsible for seeing that happens in that individual's life. So that's where we stand to help. So if we can be of help to anyone, I'd love to be a part of that. They can call our number. It's 440-484-5390, or go to the website cherishedcompanions.com. Or, excuse me, gosh, I can't believe I said that. CherishedAgency.com. If you go to CherishedCompanions.com, you're going to get a vet out in Colorado.
Oh, well, we don't want that.
Yeah, so if your dog needs help, maybe go there. But otherwise, go to CherishedAgency.com.
We appreciate that. We want everybody to have a great day. Step outside the box, and let's help each other as we grow older.
Thanks.
Have a great day.